Hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. I'm Michaela Carpenter. I'm a nutrition and life coach who specializes in helping people heal their relationship with food. So today I wanted to talk about the importance of having more compassion in terms of healing your relationship with food and why it is more important than having more willpower. So willpower is often the thing that we hear about. It's the thing that we often find ourselves wishing that we had more of when we're trying to go on a diet or create changes that we want to be able to create. But in today's video, I wanted to break down why having more willpower is not the answer, and why having more compassion is really important and being able to heal your relation with food. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, make sure you continue watching and we'll get straight into it. So the reason that willpower really doesn't work in terms of creating long-term changes and healing a relationship with food is because when we're focusing on willpower, it is both really exhausting because we are focusing on trying to really control and do things in a certain way that really doesn't always make us feel great. Like, it can make us feel great when we're able to obviously do the things we're trying to do, but as soon as we find ourselves slipping or doing something that goes against what we're trying to do, we can find ourselves feeling really not good about ourselves, and it just doesn't really feed into having a healthy relationship with food and ourselves, because we are finding ourselves beating ourselves up if we're not doing things the way we're meant to be doing or to the standard that we're meant to be doing it. So that is why willpower really isn't a good thing to be relying on, especially in the long term when we're trying to create healthy changes and have a healthy relationship with food. Compassion is really what I teach my clients to focus on having more of, because it's something that a lot of us don't have enough of. And there are a few different reasons for this, and a lot of it is just a learned thing. So we kind of had learned that willpower should be the main focus. That should be the thing we're focusing on in terms of being able to do the things we want to do in life, when in reality we need to show ourselves more compassion, and in this start focusing on the goals we want to be focusing on and creating the relationship with food that we want to have. And oftentimes this is going to be a healthy relationship with food, and I hope that's what your goal is having a healthy relationship with food. So the first thing or reason that compassion is really important and powerful is that it promotes self-acceptance. So it really is focused on helping you forgive and accept that you are where you are in your journey, and your past experiences, things that have happened to you, do not mean that your future you is going to be a certain way. It means really just accepting that things have happened the way they've happened. You've learned the things that you've learned, and you can move forward from them. And you're at the place that you're at now for a reason, and it's okay to be at the place you're at, but we can always change the way we want our future to look. So it's really just a compassionate and kind way of seeing a journey and seeing where we're at. So this is the first important piece of being able to have more compassion, is really to have that self-acceptance and be okay with where we are in our journey. So compassion really helps in terms of stress as well. So when we are focused on willpower and really, for example, in terms of a relationship with food, trying to limit or restrict and really focus on this as our main goal, this can lead to feelings of stress and anxiety, things like that around food, because we are trying to control and not allow ourselves to have certain things. So this can lead and end up in things like binge eating or emotional eating, because we are really putting such a huge pressure on ourselves not to have certain foods or to limit certain foods, in comparison to having a compassionate view or lens towards these things, where we are coming from a place of understanding and acceptance towards ourselves. We're not as likely to find ourselves feeling stress. We're not going to feel as stressed. So from this, naturally, we're not going to be wanting to reach for food as much in those situations in terms of emotional eating, but also we are coming at it from a different lens. So we're not beating ourselves up if we find ourselves eating something that maybe we wouldn't want to be eating, but we have a more accepting view towards ourselves, and it's not as all or nothing. So compassion also promotes mindful eating. So when we're coming from a place of compassion, we are having more compassion towards ourselves. So we are wanting to understand and care for ourselves more. We're wanting to see why we may be eating more in certain circumstances. We're really listening to our bodies a lot more than versus if we were just using willpower and using that as a reason to eat certain foods or not eat certain foods. Instead, we're really letting things kind of flow and just really coming from that place of wanting to make sure we're nourishing our body the way it wants to be nourished and needs to be nourished, so that we can, and really being able to identify and start noticing when we are feeling hungry versus when we are telling ourselves we're hungry or we're allowed to eat or have certain meals. So yeah, it's just a really different way of working through and being more mindful in terms of the food that we are eating. So the fourth thing I wanted to share is that compassion really focuses on creating long-term changes, and it's really focused on that. It's that shift from focusing on either losing weight or looking a certain way or being able to control things towards being able to nourish our bodies, take care of our bodies. It's really looking at that longevity and that long-term results of what we're feeding our body and how we're feeling within ourselves as well, not just through the food that we're eating. So it's really just a shift in that focus away from that, like that control piece that I said, in that willpower, towards how we can better nourish our bodies and take care of our bodies each and every day. So that is the four main benefits or things around compassion that is obviously really important, and being able to start healing our relationship with food and creating the relationship with food that we really want. So I also wanted to share 4 tips that you could start implementing, things you could try to really start shifting that focus towards compassion rather than willpower. So the first point I wanted to say or tip is to practice self-compassion. So when we find ourselves criticizing ourselves and thinking unkind thoughts towards ourselves, really thinking, what if this was my friend, how would I want them to be thinking about themselves, or how would I be thinking about them if something, when it happened, or whatever it is we're criticizing ourselves about, what sort of response would I have if my friend brought this to me? How would I show that person compassion? And start showing yourself that compassion, because it is easier for us to show others compassion when we're not used to showing ourselves compassion. So really using that as a good example and asking ourselves, would I be thinking these things about my friend, or would I be saying these things to my friend? Would I be happy to do that, or would that be unkind? Because if it's being unkind towards our friend, then it would be being unkind towards us as well. So that can be a really helpful exercise or way to kind of identify what thoughts are really not being compassionate towards ourselves versus what thoughts are being compassionate towards ourselves. And another thing in terms of that is, especially when it comes, if we find ourselves falling into old habits, which is a normal part of the journey, because a lot of the time the habits we are trying to break or relearn are ones that have been stuck with it we've had for a while, so it's going to take time and we will have fallbacks. This is a part of the journey. Is what I was saying is to replace any sort of unkind thoughts in those situations towards thoughts that are more helpful. And just like I said, as if it was your friend, what things would you be saying to them to really help them if they were sharing that with you? But the second tip that I have is mindful eating. So all of these are things that are going to take time and practice to be able to get the hang of. So don't feel like you're going to be able to do all these at once and it's all going to naturally just fit. It's never that easy. It's going to take time. So it's important maybe just to pick one of these tips and start implementing that, and then implementing the other ones as you start getting the hang of the first ones that you add in. So the mindful eating. So in terms of really just really slowing down when we are eating our food. So really trying to identify what it feels like when we are getting full versus when we are still hungry. So, and when we find ourselves eating past that point of fullness and we're starting to be able to identify that, really getting curious about why we are continuing to eat, not shaming ourselves for it, but just really coming from a place of curiosity and really wanting to understand why it is that we are still wanting to eat even though we're feeling full. So this can really help us identify some bigger things that may be really keeping us stuck, or some emotional eating that may be going on for us. So the third tip I have for you today is to forgive and let go. So a lot of the time, like I said previously, these habits that we're trying to unlearn and create new ones of have been around for a long time. So it's totally normal to kind of start feeling as though we're slipping back a little bit into old habits. But it's important to not let this make us feel as though everything was not worthwhile, and as though efforts are not helping us, because in reality they are. It's important to be able to forgive that certain things do happen and just let go of them, and focusing on how we can nourish our body better, not just the next day, but even just at the next meal or whenever we're eating next. How can we nourish our bodies a bit better than we did in the previous instance where we are feeling, maybe not feeling so happy about, but being able to accept and just be like, okay, well that's happened, it's okay, I'm learning, and maybe getting curious about why it happened as well. But just being able to forgive yourself and continue forward in your journey is really important. The fourth tip that I have for you is to seek support. So whether that is in the form of peers, people that are in similar situations to you or who have overcome these things themselves. So a few different things here. So I have a Facebook group full of people, and where I share lots of resources, and it's a really supportive community. If you would like support in that way, you're welcome to join. It's always linked below my videos. And also in terms of having someone to work one-to-one beside you and really help guide you to being able to have more compassion towards yourself and really start healing your relationship with food from this really important stance rather than focusing on willpower. If you're wanting that as well, I do offer one-to-one coaching. So if you're interested in that, I will leave my booking link below where you can book in a free consultation with me. We can just chat about it and see if that is a good fit for you. And even if it's not, that's okay. You'll still be able to get plenty out of the call, because I go through exactly where you're at and how you can really start moving forward in your journey. So that if that's something you're interested in, make sure you book in as well. So with that being said, that is all for today's video. I hope you found it really helpful. There was a lot of different things in there, and I hope that you see how important compassion is in being able to heal your relationship with food, and that willpower is not the be all end all, as many of us do really believe. And yeah, I hope this was really insightful for you. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Other than that, I post videos every week, so I will see you next week.